Baby, oh my lord, the cops chasing Bronson in the all-white Ford. Shit, I'm on that all-night tour. Bitch, I'm alright, but I'm off that raw. I'm in the road, dancing south on the top.
Morgan Stanley coming out with some late advice. They need a DeLorean and a Doc Brown. We got Credit Suisse with some strange advice, which absolutely is useless. We have a Russian CEO with suspicious death circumstances. And we have a European research center actually claiming that Europe is out of the Russian thumb as far as dependency on energy. There's a lot to talk about. Let's hit it. Woo, that was fire. The song is by Kwan Lee. It's called Acting Crazy. It's not that well known, not a lot of plays. He's on Spotify. I'm going to put the link below. Go check him out. I don't know the guy, but I absolutely like his music and I want to help him. So let's talk about Morgan Stanley. Morgan Stanley, as always, are late to the party. Whenever they put out something on mainstream media, it's so late. It's like they need a freaking time machine for this thing to be relevant. So Morgan Stanley, after everybody and their mom made a YouTube video about how China is collapsing, now saying, well, if the Chinese real estate market collapses, the Chinese stock can pull back by 20%. No shit, Sherlock. I mean, what is this? At this point, I'll prefer Kramer with his being bearish and bullish on the same stock on the same day instead of this shit. I mean, this is ridiculous. So basically, what they're saying here is something very simple. And I'm going to say it in the way they can. So 1/3 of China's GDP is derived out of a fake Ponzi scheme that is the Chinese property market. The whole Chinese property market is basically a greater fool theory maxed out. So people buying up apartments nobody ever is going to live in just so they can sell them later at a higher price. And this thing has been blowing up the Chinese economy for years. And at some point it was bound to pop. And now it's really crazy. It's almost there because we heard about the mortgage stuff. You remember the protests, people not paying mortgages, projects not finishing. And now Morgan Stanley, after everybody and their mom already know about this, coming out saying, well, there's a risk that Chinese stocks will pull back a little bit. If, not a little bit, like 20%, but I mean, they'll pull back if the China... My guy, Morgan Stanley. I mean, you're not one guy, but I mean, Morgan Stanley, come on. If the Chinese real estate market collapses, it's not going to be a 20% pullback on the Chinese stock. It's going to be a complete pandemonium of a collapse. The Chinese economy cannot survive without the Chinese real estate market. Absolutely cannot. 1/3 of their GDP is in that market. If that market collapses, it's going to be a shitstorm way beyond some 20% pullback. Now, that also goes to show you that all these people who celebrate the audit agreement between the US and the Chinese government to allow the PCAOB to actually audit the work of Chinese accountants, it's a bunch of nonsense. It's not the first time we had this agreement. We had it before. The problem isn't the agreement. The problem is, will they actually keep their promise and allow people to actually work on the ground? Last time we signed this, when people started to go actually to China and try to audit companies, they got cock-blocked. This time remains to be seen. This is exactly what Gary Gensler is saying. But my point here is like, my guy, the audit problem is the least of their problems. They have much more serious structural issues, existential issues beyond the audit problem. So I don't know about China. Now let's talk about Credit Suisse. Credit Suisse, another kind of mainstream media news derived article I just read right now, which is absolutely ridiculous. So let me remind you, Credit Suisse, the people who gave Bill Wang, remember Archegos? Bill Wang and Archegos literally took $5.5 billion from Credit Suisse with absolutely no due diligence, no proper checks, no regulations, no checks and balances. Literally wrote them an open checkbook. He took $5.5 billion from Credit Suisse, gambled it away, lost it, and Credit Suisse basically said, "Oh, we're sorry." So the same Credit Suisse, the same Credit Suisse is now telling you, and this article is just beautiful. Hey, you need to get out of stocks. It's getting too risky. Cool. So I keep reading the article and I'm like, okay, let's read it. It's interesting. And then they say, well, look, how much of an exit you need to make from the market? We don't know. And to which other asset classes you should go? We don't know. So basically, the entire article is basically a whole bunch of nothing. Nothing useful to you, nothing you can actually use, and just a marketing piece to promote their name. So people can actually go and pay them for actual research that is supposed to be worth anything. It's just an advertising platform at this point for Credit Suisse. But I mean, look, let me tell you something about asset classes. If the recession actually happens in this violent way in which people are thinking about 2023, it's not going to matter. Every single asset class is going to be wet. You know when they say when God sneezes, everybody gets wet? It's the same thing. Real estate's going to get hurt. Bonds, stocks, Dow Jones, NASDAQ, S&P 500, everything will take a massive hit in recession. There's going to be nowhere to hide. So this whole talk about asset classes and not providing even any sort of value, it's just getting ridiculous. Now I want to talk to you about this piece of information coming out of Russia because this shit is just absolutely ridiculous. So we have a guy who's the chairman of Lukoil. Now Lukoil is one of the largest oil producers in the world, one of the largest Russian oil producers, and their chairman, his name is Ravil Maganov. Now, Ravil Maganov had a heart attack, which is something that happens a lot to people who criticize the Russian government. I mean, we heard a lot of these heart attacks recently, and it's so unfortunate, the coincidence is just insane. So basically, he had a heart attack right after saying that, they criticized the operation in Ukraine, their hope for, a negotiation, a peaceful solution to the Ukraine situation. So they went against the party line, against the Putin line. And he just had a heart attack, unfortunately. So as he was getting to the hospital to treat his heart attack, somehow this heart attacked man climbed out of his bed and jumped from the window of the hospital and unfortunately died. So it seems that if you're a critic of the government in Russia, oh wait, I'm getting a text from Putin. Oh, sorry, this never happened. yeah, that's fake news, sorry, scratch that. I mean, never happened. A lot of heart attacks, a lot of accidents. Let's move on. Let's talk about Europe and Russia. Now, this is a very interesting story. So we've been banging the drum of Europe's dependence on Russia and how the Germans have abandoned their own energy independence to be dependent on Russia's natural gas. And this is the blame of Gerhard Schröder, also the blame of Angela Merkel. And now they're stuck with the situation where Russia basically gets to hold them by the cojones and press whatever they need something. And now we have this new piece coming out of the Economist Research Unit basically saying, hey, Europe is now in a path to absolutely disengage from Russia for good. So Europe is past the point of no return from cutting itself out of Russian gas. So this means Russia's dominance over Europe, over energy is over, effectively, because Europe is basically building a whole new infrastructure, a whole new system. But, and here's the big but, if you actually look at the research paper, you'll see that what they're saying, yes, we are past the point of no return. Europe is never going to be dependent on Russian gas again, on Russian energy again, as much as it was before, but it's going to take 2 more years to get to that point. And for the next 2 years, it's going to be extremely difficult to be a European in the winter. We are basically in for some rough times, even though Germany and other countries are way in advance, ahead of schedule in creating extra storage of energy. But the winters for the next 2 years in Europe are going to be insanely difficult. And Russia is going to try to leverage that into political achievements. Have no doubt about that. Now, I don't know what's going to happen with Russia, Germany, or any sort of executives who jump out of windows when they're not supposed to. None of that. I'm just a guy on the internet with an opinion, which might be inaccurate, might be wrong, might be the ramblings of a madman. So, as always, do your own research and don't click nothing, don't smash nothing, don't buy nothing. See you next video.